Welcome to the Observatory. This is number 8, and it's August 10th right now. Another supermoon. In this episode, I just want to focus on one topic this time, and that topic is going to be education. So the things I wanted to say about education specifically relate to how I would organize education if I were able to. The areas of the brain, the left and right hemisphere, and physical education, those would be my three main focuses. And there's this idea that I've had about education where you're either offering an experience or you're offering some kind of information to be learned or integrated. So a lot of my experience with education is that it's almost more of offering an experience for students, and a lot of the information is not necessarily meant to be used necessarily. So there's that element of it. But back to this basic concept of the left and right hemispheres. If you look at the left hemisphere of the brain and the left hemisphere psychology that has to do with logical thinking, analytical thinking, and you think about academic subjects, a lot of the first subject that would probably come to mind with the left brain type of thinking is math, and after that possibly physics, chemistry, and then moving into biology, and then it starts getting into less and more of the softer sciences like history, social science, psychology, on more of the and then the humanities, the arts, music, and drama, and things involving expression like writing and poetry and stuff like that that would have to do with the right side of the brain. But when designing a curriculum, even for an elementary schools, or for really on any level, from elementary, middle, high school, college, getting an advanced degree, if you're to design a curriculum for students throughout the day, I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of an elementary or middle school, a traditional type of, I guess, a younger education. If you're going to give something having to do with the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, and incorporating physical education throughout the day to give a balanced experience, that's what happened when I was growing up and going to school. But it wasn't, I guess the difference is that every time we would deal with something having to do with the left side of the brain or the right side of the brain, like if we were in a math class, it's dealing with the left side of the brain, and then in an art class it's dealing with the right side of the brain. It wasn't necessarily looked at in that way. The concept I guess I'm trying to work with is you can be exercising the hemispheres rather than integrating new information. So that's sort of a key element in terms of education that I wanted to bring up, is to notice when you're offering an experience or simply exercising, trying to push beyond your current limits. That's a lot of what is worth looking and thinking about in terms of anybody who does anything on the earth, especially athletes are looked at that way. What they want to do is to be able to get beyond whatever limit they're at. So if you're a sprinter and you run, 40-meter dash at a certain time, you always want to get a little bit faster, or you always want to try to break beyond those limits. So with education, this is just an idea that I've had. You can be taking those different hemispheres of the brain with subjects and treating it as though you're exercising those parts of the brain, just as you would exercise in physical education, rather than integrating. You can kind of separate that idea and include integrating new information into part of the day and part of the educational experience. But looking at the sort of the difference between whether you're offering new information to be integrated or you're offering an experience in which certain hemispheres of the brain are being exercised. And when you're exercising, you're usually working on breaking beyond your limits and growing, basically, in those areas. So the example for how you might exercise the left hemisphere of the brain, a good example would be playing a game of chess, because it's a game involving pure strategy and logic. And you also have to be creative, but it's more about calculating, thinking about possibilities, outcomes, being strategic, and all those things having to do with the left side of the brain. And if you involve that as part of a curriculum, playing a game like chess or Go every day for a certain amount of time, having a little mini tournament or something, I think that would be a great thing to do on a daily basis, or it could be a different kind of game every day. And then, so when you're doing that, it would be simply exercising the left hemisphere. Say kids know how to do certain math problems or something. If you're giving them a lot of math that they already know how to do, then they're simply exercising and building strength in that hemisphere. And so on to the right side of the brain. If you're basically like in an art class or something, and you are you've already made a lot of drawings or paintings or something, but it's just another chance to come up with a new image, a new idea, a new way to exercise your imagination, then that's what you're doing rather than integrating new information. And so, if I were to design a curriculum, I would use these ideas of exercising the different hemispheres of the brain by doing things like, for the left side of the brain, playing a game, a strategic game, and for the right side of the brain, making art. And for physical education, I involve, just the normal physical education things, but be able to do that in every class. So rather than having a certain period, but to be able to incorporate that into every class, and to keep the sitting for long periods in a certain posture to a minimum. So maybe incorporating yoga poses into the classroom. And one other thought that I had talked about would be incorporating art into every subject. So, for example, if you had a social studies class or a histories class, this could go for really any level. Say you're taking a history class in college, and you're taking, say, American history, and you're learning about American Revolution, to use art to always to be creative with whatever information that you're integrating. Because I think the act of being creative with new information is a way of making sure that it means something to you. If you can put your own spin on whatever you learn and make an art project out of any piece of information that comes to you that you want to integrate into your life and use, then making an art project based on it. So say you're in math class or something, you could make a piece of art based on, I don't know, if you're learning about algebra, to come up with some kind of scenario, or maybe a drama would work, as using certain people, to a certain number of people that would represent one side of the equation and a certain number that would represent unknowns, and then have them walking around in a drama to represent, how numbers shift from one side of the equation to another. And what would be other examples? Basically, my idea is to not strictly limit. It would be to keep segments of topics, maybe 1 hour classes for the usual topics of art, math, music, science, social studies, and any other type of topic, but to integrate the topics within each other. So it'd be just more of an interdisciplinary approach to learning, and also a physical approach to learning, because they say sitting is the new smoking, and sitting for long periods of time is unhealthy. And it's these kind of untalked about things, such as sitting in chairs and at desks for long periods of time, that make up a lot of the educational experience, and things like that have to be questioned and changed and thought about. So yeah, I guess I would sum up by just recapping the idea of changing curriculum by taking into account the left-right hemispheres of the brain, and taking into account simply exercising those hemispheres of the brain, and then when you're teaching and trying to integrate new information, it's not as much about exercising them, but it is about integrating. And whenever you're integrating, you have to be creative with the information, make it your own, and also reflect back on it. I think to learn something without ever using it is really pretty awful, unless you're considering that you're simply exercising. You're exercising your math muscles or something like that by learning a math concept that you would never use. You're still exercising your logical parts of the brain, which is a good thing. And maybe if you're making a piece of art, even if it's never going to sell or anything, you're still exercising your creative parts of your brain. So it's still a good thing to do. So yeah, back to the recap: the left-right hemispheres of the brain, knowing the difference between exercising your brain and integrating new information, and also incorporating some physical movement and changing the physical structure of the classroom. So yeah, those are basically my ideas. I could keep going on with more examples, but I don't want to have too long of a video. So that's my observatory episode for this week, and hopefully somebody who's thinking about designing a curriculum or looking for new information about education, new ideas relating to education, could find this useful.